Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Jabbering Jake Podcast. So, I know it's been 2 weeks since the last episode. I did miss an upload last week.
Oops.
So, sorry about that. Last week was just. I don't know, it wasn't my week. I was just feeling really down and depressed. I wasn't really feeling it that week. And that's okay. Everybody has those weeks and everybody has those times when they need to recharge a little bit. It's kind of ironic because even though I was on the road on vacation, I managed to get an episode out then, but I missed last week. And like I said, we all have those days. Nobody's a superhero. We're all humans. And I think it's important sometimes that you got to take care of your mental health and stuff like that. Maybe one day I'll get a sponsorship with some resource like BetterHelp or whatever that can help, promote to people, because I think it really is important to take care of that type of stuff and give everybody access to it. It's like you perform maintenance on your car, or you have a mechanic perform maintenance on your car, even if it's not broken, right? So I think we should do the same with our brains. It's funny. I kind of have this thing that started in university when I was going to school. I have trouble I have trouble relaxing. Like, I do not know how to relax. Whenever I try to just relax or take leisure time, there's always this feeling of guilt or whatever, this feeling like I should be doing something and I'm not, and I'm squandering the time. I'm never really to relax guilt-free. And I wish I could. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It has its benefits, but it also has its weaknesses, right? If you have that feeling that sort of, that it can be like a drive to keep pushing on and improving yourself and reaching for the next goal, climbing for the next peak, if harnessed in the correct way. But also, if it gets a little bit out of control, it can really get to you, right? You can't ever relax guilt-free. I'm sure, I'm definitely not the only one that has that. There's tons of people out there. It's probably, I would guess, maybe one of the most common sort of things that people have, maybe. And it's funny because I thought that I had it while I was in university, and I thought, oh, well, once I get out, and I'm out in the real world, that feeling will go away. But surprise, surprise, nobody was waving a magic wand, and it didn't just disappear just like that. So, it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting thing, but we're all in this together. We don't all have to deal with anything alone. So that's the good news, and it really helps me, keeps me going to come back to this and know that there's people out there listening to this that enjoy it enough to keep listening. And so that gives me enough motivation to keep this going. And so we're not stopping anytime soon. And in fact, I know I keep saying it, but pretty soon we'll get some guest episodes going, some special episodes thrown in there with guests once I start to line up some guests and schedule them to do a recording session with me. But yeah, so we got back from our vacation, and luckily the next day we didn't have to go right back to work because all of us had Labor Day off. Which Labor Day is one of those holidays that I've never quite understood, or like what it is. I mean, I sort of, right, I get the general idea of what it is, right? I think it just has something to do with workers' rights or whatever, like, and people get a day off, except for all the people that don't get a day off on all these big holidays, which kind of sucks. But also, I feel like a lot of us in our modern, convenient, comfy society would have trouble functioning for a day if some of these services weren't running. So, I mean, hats off to the people that are working, but none of us had to work when we get back. And one of the things I did on that extra day that I had was, if you remember, I've bemoaned my less than stellar internet at this house for a while. And finally, I mean, I'd kind of done a little bit of this before, but, I kind of finally completed the job on Labor Day. Is I basically took the little dish that I have, because I have this Starlink dish that I get my internet from. Basically, what I did was I took matters into my own hands. I had all this equipment that I had gotten, harness and ropes and stuff like that, and I climbed up the tree in my yard and mounted the Starlink up there myself. And first of all, don't ever do that. I don't recommend it. It was pretty scary. I mean, I did it in the safest way possible, but I definitely did not have the knowledge or training that the professionals that do that type of work do. And I definitely had no business doing that. I had no business just going up there just on my own, let alone then lugging up tools and equipment with me. Not that I necessarily carried everything on my person on the way up. I did have ropes that went down to the ground that I would tow some stuff up afterwards. But don't ever do it. It's, especially if you have the money to afford paying people to do it. It's expensive, but if you have tree work done that needs to be done, especially up high, have the professionals handle it, because they know what they're doing and can do it safely. Because there's other hazards than just falling out of the tree. Like, there's a power line right next to my tree that, God forbid, like a branch falls on it or something and zaps you. But I got the dish up there successfully, got the Starlink dish mounted up at the top of the tree where it has a much clearer view of the sky. Still not a perfect view of the sky, because there is sort of one limb that's still in the way. I couldn't climb up because it got too thin and it would have just cracked under my weight and stuff like that. And that I probably will have some professionals just trim for me at some point, but it's doing leaps and bounds better than it was before. It's actually fairly decently usable now for most everything that I do, which is nice. I don't have to just rely on the AT&T hotspot that I got, but that's an exciting development. And luckily, the way I timed it unintentionally, or totally intentionally, of course, was that as I was just about getting back to the ground, it started to rain, which means I was not up at the top of the tree while it was raining, or God forbid, a thunderstorm where I could have gotten struck by lightning. We were clear of the tree canopy well before that. But the thing about that, too, was that it was kind of nice because it was not a blistering hot day like it was the first time I climbed up the tree. And I was much better prepared. The first day I did it, it was kind of a mission failed situation because, it was a hot day. It was like a Saturday or something like that. I was lugging up a lot of heavy stuff that that was definitely already making it harder for me, even though it was my first time really climbing up a tree like that. And as I was lugging I was not prepared at all. I didn't bring any water with me, which was a big factor in making that even more miserable, which I'll talk about. But basically, I had all the tools I thought I would need to trim any branches that were in my way, climb up safely, things like that. And then I also had the tools for mounting the Starlink dish, and then the dish and the cord itself. Now, the way I did it was the dish had a little carrying pouch, and I tied a rope to that and then tied the other end of the rope to myself and climbed up. And then when I get to the top, I would basically pull it up to where I was and mount it. And I had the cord plugged into that and, just letting the cord dangle to the ground. And, well, long story short, so I get up to the top of the tree. I trim some limbs, around where I want to mount it so that the limbs and leaves wouldn't block it and it could get a clear view of the sky. But obviously between the dish coming up and or limbs falling down past it, the cord came unplugged from it, which means that I lugged the dish up and it was essentially pointless for it to have been there because it had no cord attached to it. And I kind of had to climb a little bit down again anyway just to dislodge it because there was like a limb that was pinching the rope that was like too heavy to pull it past. So it was already going downhill, and I had this dish up there that was basically, without that cable plugged into it, just a paperweight. So I basically, what I did was I just tied it off to, I mounted it, at least it was at the top of the tree for the next time, and then I went back down, and let me tell you, I was at the top, when I was at the very tip top of the tree, where I mounted it, I was already noticing, really the second set of red flags, I guess. The first set was on the way up, sweating profusely, getting tired. But I get to the top and my fingers started cramping up. Now, part of that also was because earlier that day I had these like grip trainer, like exercise, for training your grip strength type things that I'd been working with earlier in the day, and my hands, my forearms and fingers were starting to cramp up, and I would move my finger and it would literally get bound up so tight in like the bent position that I would have to take my other hand and pry the fingers open again, which was really bad news and did not bode well for me because, mind you, I was at the top of the tree still. I still had to climb back down. You think climbing up is the hard part? No. That is the easy part by far. Climbing down is way more brutal. And in fact, one of my buddies I was talking to that used to do that type of work said, "No," he said, "you did it all wrong." He said, "You need to rappel back down." He said, "That's how we always did it." And I apologize if I've told any of this stuff before. I might have, but certainly I hadn't told about the success story if I had mentioned this before. But yeah, so I was climbing down, and here's the thing. The biggest danger or fear in my mind wasn't even falling. That wasn't a thought because I don't, at any point really, if I were to like sort of lose my footing and fall, I wouldn't go very far because of all the safety ropes and stuff. I was legitimately afraid that I would not be able to get back down because of how fatigued I was and just not having the strength. I mean, that was pushing your body past its limits. I think I'd have to go to the gym like 10 times. 10 times to be as tired as I was. I finally eventually made it. I mean, so soaked with sweat that you would have think I jumped into a pool. And I was barely able to just walk to my front porch and take a seat and get some drinks and snacks. I could barely talk. I was just so tired and dehydrated for sure. Probably had heat stroke. And then I immediately went to bed, and it was like 6, maybe not even 6 in the evening. It was probably like 4 or 5. And my family all went to get like Chinese food and get supper after that, and I just went inside and slept for like over 14 hours, or at least attempted to. I've definitely had so much trouble falling asleep. I mean, I was making sure to replenish my fluids and get snacks. I had a couple of bananas, but like my legs, you ever had that where you're sleeping and in the middle of the night you just have the worst cramp in your leg? That was just all night, several times throughout the night, just happening to me and waking me up or stopping me from going to sleep. But, I eventually survived, and I think I've mentioned this before, but that was one of the top 2 times in my life, like top 2 worst feeling times in my life. One of them being the first night when I thought that maybe I had COVID, felt like I was going to die, and then that time. But this second time that I climbed up was not nearly like that. I prepared a lot better. I brought water with me. I wasn't lugging up as much heavy equipment or stuff like that. I was better prepared with backup plans in place for like making sure I didn't, climb up there for nothing. Like, oh, I dropped this or I don't have this or whatever. And it turned out a whole lot better, partially because of the fact that I'd done it once already, so my body was maybe a bit more used to it, and also partly because I was much better prepared. And now I have way better internet. So that's cool. Happy about that. It's funny. I listen to quite a lot of podcasts myself, and there's a decent couple of podcasts I listen to that are actually people like that aren't even from America and stuff like that. And they talk about like they'll talk about America sometimes because obviously they have quite a few American listeners, and they'll talk about things that America does have or doesn't have or does do or doesn't do. And one thing I've heard them talk about, especially like the British podcasters I've listened to, is they talk about these things called roundabouts. And they're like, oh yeah, Americans, whenever they see the roundabouts, they're always like so surprised, like, oh, we don't have that in America. And I'm like, am I living in a different America from people? Like, are they getting this information from Americans, or are they just like where they've been, they haven't seen one? Because I'm like, we definitely have roundabouts. I've seen several of them. So what parts of the country are either people telling them we don't have them where they're from that don't have roundabouts, or where have they been that hasn't had roundabouts? And something about like plumbing and heating and stuff. This one podcaster I was watching was talking about like, oh yeah, I had issues with my heat in the house. I was calling a plumber, and apparently a bunch of his viewers were really confused. He was actually doing a live stream. And they're like, what? A plumber? Why would you call a plumber for your heat? Why wouldn't you call an electrician or something like that? And they're like, he's like, well, because we have like the radiators or the boilers that like, produce the heat for us. And the people in his chat were like, oh, we don't have that in America. And it's like, what? We definitely do though. Especially where I was from in Vermont. You actually saw, like, it was, I feel like at least it was rare that I saw somebody that had like electric, like, modern sort of electric heat. Like most people that I would have known, ourselves included, had the old like furnace, like boilers, for our heat and our hot water and stuff like that. So it was just kind of surprising. But it got me to thinking too that just, like the U.S. is so massive. Like there's just so much land area and so much diversity in like the people and the population. And I know we're not the biggest in terms of land area or population, right? There's definitely other countries like that, but it's just such a massive country with so much diversity of like people in different parts of the country that it's like it really could seem like several different countries, or it really, I guess, isn't unheard of to think like maybe people living in one part of the country don't know about how life is in other parts of the country. At most maybe what they can get, the exposure they can get to other parts of the country is through media, or if they have ever gone on vacation to visit there. Like I couldn't tell you what life in like Washington or Oregon or Idaho or anything up in like the Northwest or the Midwest, most of the Midwest, I couldn't tell you what life is like there. I can maybe tell you what I've heard through some pieces of media about what life is like there, but what do I really know unless I've actually been there? I mean, I don't know if I can really even say that about places I've been to for vacation, Like, of course, I've been to Florida a couple times. We went to Las Vegas once. And, you pick up a little bit, but what do I really know about, stuff there that they do or don't do or have or don't have that maybe we have in Vermont or Alabama. So it's interesting to think about. And that's one reason why I want to travel a lot and experience different parts of the world, because I want to learn all these different things and just experience, a different way of life that some people do. That stuff just fascinates me, and maybe it plays into like the thing I said where I have a hard time just relaxing guilt-free, because I want to just be out there adventuring and learning new things and bettering myself. Because I think it's really cool. It gives you a broader perspective on life, and it you also can have lots of adventures that you remember, and if you share them with people, it's really cool. Like if you get to travel and see the world. And I've been fortunate that I've had the opportunity to travel to some pretty cool places so far in my life, like Honduras, British Columbia, Cancun, India. It's been a privilege, and it's definitely something I want to continue to do. I got to get back on the grind of just doing some of the stuff I enjoy. I've just kind of, the last few weeks I've been getting real lazy, just not doing anything. And it's funny because, how I mentioned where I can't really relax guilt-free. So it was this cycle of like, I would just in the evenings really not feel like doing anything, and just feel like being lazy and sitting on the couch and just like doing something mindless, just watching mindless TV or videos or stuff like that. And even the last couple weeks I had kind of stopped going to the gym, because my brother had started this new job doing sort of manual labor, and he was always coming home tired, too tired to go to the gym. And maybe that was on me for not being a better like gym partner and being like, hey, come on, let's go. Like, I know you're tired, but let's just get it over with. But it kind of made it easier to make up my own excuses to not go, because, there's so much, so much work I got to do around the house, so much to clean up, whatever, this and that. But even making those excuses, I didn't do nearly as much housework or cleaning as I should have or needed to do. And so I would just be being lazy. But like I said earlier, because I can't, just be lazy and relaxed without guilt, I would feel super guilty, and I think it was just sort of spiraling. So I need to get back on the horse. Like I said, I want to travel to Japan someday, like visit, to go on a vacation, maybe even try living and working there for a bit, which is a nice opportunity that is afforded to you when you work remotely. Gives you a little bit of mobility within reason. So maybe that's an opportunity I could try in the future. But, something I want to do prior to that, and I mean, you don't have to do this prior to it, and it probably won't happen maybe prior to my first time ever being there, if they ever open up for like full tourism again, is learning Japanese. And that's one of the things I just haven't been doing in these past few weeks. And it was like a fun thing I used to enjoy, and yeah, it's difficult and it's a lot of work. And a lot of people would be like, well, what's the point? Like, why? And I don't know, there's just something about just never stopping to improve yourself in some way, especially if it's in a way you enjoy. That's the best. That's the golden ticket, is like, oh, you're doing self-improvement in some way, or you're doing something that keeps you sharp, or you're learning something and you enjoy it. Like, that's just one of the cool, the best human experiences you can have. I mean, like someone I know, someone I work with, a friend of mine, they do cubing. They solve Rubik's cubes, and it's really cool. This person, they're showing me the times they're getting solving their cubes, when they jumble it up, and it's like, they've gotten down to the point where they're like, in the 20s of like seconds, between 24, like 25 seconds, something like that, like solving these cubes. And it's just really cool. That's somebody that's doing something they really enjoy, keeps the mind sharp. They're improving themselves in some way. Not that everything you do in life has to be like, self-improvement, or it's a waste of time. Like I said, that would be part of that like guilt thing. That not being able to relax thing. But it's just cool when you're able to have hobbies or fun things that you do that you enjoy. So, yeah, so I gotta, gonna start getting back on track with all that, and really get back into a proper routine that I've been wanting to get back on for a while now. I think it's a good opportunity to pick that back up. And let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I had some things on my mind. I got to get back into organizing my outline. I'm trying to strike a balance now between kind of being spontaneous and off the cuff, but also having some things prepared. And part of perhaps why I missed an episode 2 is I thought, like, I don't have anything prepared. I don't want to waste anyone's time by just getting in front of the microphone and having another sort of episode 1 thing where I stumbled and didn't really, know what to talk about next. I'm trying to strike a balance, and I think it's good to have some notes prepared, but not to be married to them too much, to be able to let the conversation flow, maybe make it feel a bit more natural. So that's what I'm going for. But if you can jot down some things you want to talk about, it's good, because let's see. I had a few things in mind. Oh, yeah, that was something. So recently, so back to Japan and me wanting to go. One thing I always hear that's great about Japan is the food. Like, people always, that I've heard always rave about how amazing the food is. And a couple of foods that look particularly good to me were these things called takoyaki and okonomiyaki. So takoyaki is like these fried balls of like dough with like usually octopus meat in them, which, I've told my mom about, and she of course thinks is disgusting. She really doesn't do seafood at all, especially octopus. That's what the taco, if I'm remembered correctly, that's what the taco and takoyaki means, is octopus. But I mean, you can customize it, with anything you want. Maybe not actually in Japan where you get it. But the point is, these foods look so delicious, and I wanted to try them for so long that I decided I would try my hand at recreating them on my own. Maybe it's not the best first experience, because now that first experience is in my head, and I know I'm getting ahead of myself here. So I wanted to try these dishes out, right? And luckily, there's some Asian markets not too far from where I live. You could make a trip of it on the weekend. And so I went with my parents. We got some ingredients for these 2 dishes. Well, I got my ingredients for them. My mom got some ingredients for some other stuff she wanted to make. And one of the things you need for making takoyaki is a special pan with, these round, like, chambers for you to cook them in. And I was thinking, I probably need to order something like that online. Or maybe, if I'm lucky, one of these places would have it. And wouldn't you know, the place we went to had like one. And my dad just happened to find it. And so we got it, which was really cool. So Sunday night, I decided to, try out cooking those recipes and stuff. And they definitely, it was a valiant first attempt, and you shouldn't expect to do anything perfectly the first time, and I certainly didn't with these. I butchered them pretty badly, I think. Definitely burned the takoyaki. I mean, they looked like miniature cannonballs. Half cannonballs that had maybe already hit something and kind of deformed a bit. Because I definitely did not, they were messed up, is what I'm trying to say. But, oh my goodness, if they didn't still taste good. I mean, so I kind of just thought in my head, like, man, if these things taste this good with my crappy attempt at them, imagine how good they're going to be when I get the opportunity to try them in Japan from chefs that actually know what the heck they're doing. And I'll definitely keep making them again and improving and learning from what I did. But yeah, I'm excited to actually try the real deal when one day I get to travel to Japan and try it. And you can customize it a bit more. At least with the okonomiyaki, like I said, it literally means like, more or less like the things you like cooked the way you want, is a rough translation of what that dish means. So you can have all kinds of different customization options. For both the okonomiyaki and the takoyaki I made, I just used chicken. Works well enough. And if I ever make it for my parents, it won't freak out my mom. So there you go. And that's basically what's been up with my life this week. It's good to be back. I know I've only been gone a week, but it's good to get recording again. And we're gonna keep the steam train going on strong. We're gonna keep going, and I'm gonna keep improving myself. I hope you all can continue to keep improving yourselves. Don't hang your head down low. Enjoy the downtimes so not the downtimes in terms of depressingness, but the downtimes in terms of relaxation. If you're like me and you have trouble relaxing without guilt, just allow yourself, easier said than done, but allow yourself to just relax and enjoy yourself sometimes and just turn off your brain without that guilt. I know I've sounded so manic in the way I keep jumping back and forth between words here, but, that's a nice little takeaway I wanted to leave you with. And listen, we all know this. We're all going to have our down times. We're all going to have days or weeks, sometimes even months, where we're just, we're not feeling it, and we just don't feel like doing even sometimes the things we love. But the point is, like, just acknowledge you're feeling that way. Allow yourself to feel that way without that guilt again. And just know that things are always going to get better. So thank you all for listening and tuning in. Please share the podcast. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, the people you see out in public. Tell them about the podcast. Tell them to give it a listen. You may have heard already, as I mentioned, I think in the last episode, that we have ads now, which is, on one hand, I get it's annoying, I acknowledge that, right? I don't like to listen to ads on stuff. So on the one hand, sorry. But on the other hand, it means that this podcast is starting to move up in the world a little bit, and we're able to start earning some extra, a little extra cash from it, So share this podcast around with people so they can listen to it and tell more people about it, and start bringing in a little extra moolah so I can buy like my mom or my dad a nice special meal from like Taco Bell or something like that. We're starting out small, but we're getting there. And thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week. Thanks. Bye.